Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, December 1st, 2023, and it's approximately 10 a.m. Central Time. All of our meetings are recorded and they're housed on the Tennessee Coalition's YouTube page. So everyone, welcome to the quarterly meeting of the Domestic Violence State Coordinating Council, and it is open and available to the public. First, I wanted to go ahead and welcome our newest member, Felix Vess, the Chief of Police at Chattanooga Housing Police, who replaced Chief Deb Faulkner. Welcome. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Really a privilege being on this board for domestic violence. I've actually been in law enforcement since 93, 94. And between Knoxville, I spent 10 years for Knoxville Police Department, and then went down to Chattanooga for the Housing Authority Police Department, which was started in 2002. And I've been the Chief of Police for the Housing Authority Police Department since about 2004. So I've worked in Chattanooga since then. I actually live in Athens, Tennessee, and it's a privilege being here. And it's nice working with everybody.
Well, we're very happy to have you, and thanks so much for stepping in. We really appreciate it and look forward to working with you this next year. So we will go ahead and now call the roll. Reminder, please unmute yourself and let Secretary Fox know if you're here by saying here or present.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning again, everyone. Vice Chair Bean.
Present.
Councilmember Consilio Young.
Here.
Councilmember Curtis.
Present.
Councilmember Dalton. Judge Dalton. Councilmember Durisha Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Sarah Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer. Secretary Fox is present. Councilmember Frog.
Here.
Chair.
Present.
Councilmember Jones, Sue Jones. Councilmember Sue Jones. Councilmember McDevitt. Councilmember Regina McDevitt.
I see Sue Jones right there.
I did. It's been a morning, I'm telling you. I'm here.
Thank you, Sue. Councilmember Judge McMillan. Councilmember Judge Greg McMillan. Councilmember Stacy Miller. Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Reynolds. Councilmember D. Reynolds. Councilmember Reeves. Councilmember Kendra Reeves. Councilmember Sheriff Ray Russell. Councilmember Russell. Councilmember Scott. Councilmember Judge Jenny Scott. Thought I saw her earlier.
I'm here.
Thank you, Judge Scott. Councilmember Tate. Councilmember Elena Tate. Councilmember Bobby Van. Councilmember Van. Councilmember Bess. Chief Bess. And then, thank you, sir. Councilmember Senator Wally.
Here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Madam Chair, that concludes the official roll call for the council meeting today.
And Secretary Fox, do we have a quorum today?
We do. A quorum consists of at least 7 members, and we do have a quorum for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the meetings minutes from last meeting, September 8th, 2023, were sent by Secretary Fox on November 27th via email. Were there any corrections that anyone has to these minutes? If there are no corrections, the minutes are approved as they are distributed. And now we're going to get into our committee reports.
Madam Chair, Before we do
Yes.
that, and this is my fault, we do need to recognize our guest. We do have one guest. Van Wolf.
Yes, of course. Sorry. Yes, Van Wolf, it's so nice to have you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for
Yes.
having me.
Of course, yes, and it's open to the public. Members of the public can come, and so we really appreciate you being here today. And so now we're going to go ahead and get into the executive committee report. So our executive committee, we met on Friday, November 17th at 11 a.m. And first we discussed a new format for our quarterly meetings going into 2024. We are looking to have certain members discuss their work, give insights and updates on domestic violence within the state, just to inform everyone and keep everyone in the loop and learn a little bit more about each of our members individually. We've had Alana Tate and Regina McDevitt, who both graciously agreed to discuss their work in 2024. If anyone is interested in this work and stepping up and talking to the council, please let us know. We'd love to loop you into one of our future meetings. We also talked about having our individual committees discuss goals before jumping into updates on the meetings, and just so we can understand better what each of the committees do and to make sure that we're reaching those targeted goals. Additionally, if any committee chair does anticipate being out, please let us know. And we can maybe look into getting a replacement from your individual organization just to help with you being out. We had no updates internally on the certification and monitoring committee for October. For training and education, we are currently waiting for updates on the training director. And for the emerging issues and order of protection committee, I'm happy to share Michelle is back, and we're very, very happy and excited to have her. And as a reminder for all of the separate committees, our meetings are due on December 15th. Sorry, our meeting minutes are due December 15th. So please remember to send this to us as soon as you have them available. And then we also had an open discussion on several different topics. First, Secretary Fox is in need of an assistant. She does so much. She does a lot of work for the council and for the coalition. And so we're going to plan on putting in a request in for her to help assist in all of the monitoring and wonderful things she does all across the state. So we're looking into that. Second, we would love to give the BIPS standards a big refresh. They have not been updated since the 90s, and we are looking to set up a rules committee. So if you're interested in joining that rules committee, again, let the executive board know, and we'll be more than happy to incorporate you in the rules committee. Third, so you all are aware, Judge Robert Hedrick within Blount County wants his local BIPS program to encompass 24 weeks instead of the 26 weeks. So just for your awareness. Finally, Secretary Fox is looking into certain out-of-state programs. And I think this goes along with the Rules Committee update and refresh. Specifically the Kansas Family Peace Initiative, their River of Cruelty model for BIPS has been kind of a leading organization. And so we'd love to look at what they do and perhaps incorporate it into our standards. And as a reminder, we will continue to meet quarterly in preparing for the general body meeting. Deb Faulkner, as we discussed at the outset of the meeting, has stepped down and replaced by Chief Vess. The Assistant Secretary Treasurer position is now available and open. If anyone is interested in taking on that role, let us know, and we'd love to have you. Please send us an email and let us know if you'd like to be on the executive committee. And finally, next on the agenda is all of our separate committee reports. As a reminder, when making motions, please identify yourself so that Madam Secretary can have an accurate account of who's making them as well as all of the seconds. And first, we're going to start with the Certification and Monitoring Committee, who met this morning via Zoom. And I know Chair Stacy Miller is unavailable. Do we have somebody who can give that report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee did meet on this morning, which consisted of Lena Frog and myself. Judge McMillan wasn't able to attend because he is caught up in court, and our chair, Stacy Miller, isn't feeling well. So that's the report in terms of those who were present and those who were absent. Obviously, we did not have any monitoring visits during this cycle in terms of recertification. However, I would like to bring to you all's attention, because last quarter during the council meeting, I committed to going back out to Lighthouse Counseling. And so Lighthouse is the program in which we received a complaint and or concern, if I may. And after I had gone out last quarter, I didn't find any findings and reported that back to the Davidson County General Sessions judge. And so they were pretty much clear. So randomly, I went out on November 17th, and there was a couple of issues there. Number one, there was a female in the male class. And so our standards, this is one of the reasons we do need to update our standards. Number one, our standards have not been updated and or revised since 1999. So essentially they're stale, they're old, and they're outdated. And so our standards literally are geared toward heterosexual men. And so that times now have changed, we need to be very deliberate about having classes for all genders. And so we did have the discussion with Mr. Ford. This is Percy Ford, who manages and has done just a wonderful job over the years. He is highly regarded in the Davidson County arena. However, number one, his class, again, had a female participant. There were two participants. One was female, and his curriculum is Men Stopping Violence. And so we need to, again, address some things about the curriculums and make sure that we have a space and a place for all who commit domestic violence offenses, and who are either court ordered and or self-referred to those programs. So I want to read verbatim his response so that we can all be on the same page, and then we'll look at a couple of other corrective actions. So his response is, she is biologically a female, but bounces back and forth in her identification. And I'm reading this verbatim. I wasn't going to get caught up in the politics of that. And since I only had one other person, I just put the two of them together, as that would make more economic and time sense. If need be, I can remove her and do something else with her if it's an issue. I let her know in the beginning, if the class fills up, she will most likely have to be removed. But those are the only two people I have, so I just put them together since I was using the same program. So that's his response verbatim. This is the Davidson County class. He also has a class in Rutherford County, which has more participants. So wanted to get some feedback before we move to the other corrective actions. Any thoughts about having the female? We know that that shouldn't happen. It's not a real good mix when we have females in the class with the male. However, we do want to open it up for some conversation, some dialogue about thoughts. Again, this is the reason why we really do need to spend some deliberate, intentional time, purposeful time, revising those stale standards. Thoughts or comments?
It's been a while since I have been to Percy Ford's, one of his classes, and Tina, I'll help you if you ever have anyone in Rutherford County that needs to be observed. I'm willing to do it. Okay. I have been to one of his classes before and they were all male. I thought Percy, like you said, he's well respected and with good reason. I was very impressed by the way he commanded the program and, really press the accountability. I will agree, it is very male-centered, the class that he teaches. I thought that there were bibs specifically for women. I think I know in Davidson when I worked there, I thought there were. I don't know about in Rutherford County. That's a good question. And I don't, was that the complaint for Lighthouse, that there were, and the other thing is, you keep saying she, does the particular individual identify as a man? So would that person think they were a he? And maybe this is just something we need to address on our revamping of the program. And it's a really interesting question that I don't know that I have done the research on to really know, should there be a different curriculum for women even? Should these curriculums even be focused on gender? We all know doing this work that predominantly it's men offending on women, but we also know that that's not going to cover everything. So it's a good question that I don't know the answer to.
Thank you, Sarah. So first of all, yes, there are classes very specific for females. There are at least 3 across the state. Okay, we just don't have enough of them. Again, the standards are geared toward heterosexual men. So that's why we really do need to spend some quality time looking at those standards and making revisions as applicable so that we can be in the trend, in the newness of life, so to speak, as relates to BIPs. And I contend that we are behind the 8 ball. We need to be in front of it. So having those revised standards could help us in getting curriculums that are applicable to the needs of the participants. This is one of the reasons I want to go out and look at the Kansas model. And thank you, Becky Bullock. Becky is also one of our guests. And I kind of look at her as a member because she comes with just a wealth of knowledge. She's with the Office of Family Safety. She is the one, she along with Diane Lance are the ones who gave me this thought of having a different perspective about BIPs and how we are operating BIPs. So saying all that to say that there is this need to really look at our standards and make them applicable to all. And you're right, Sarah, approximately 85% or more of all domestic violence cases are men battering women. So that leaves us at least 15 to 17% of women and or others. And of course, these are reported cases. So we have a lot of work to do. And we have to, as I shared with Brooke and Lena, we have to be willing to do this important work. If not, we are failing our program directors and we are failing the citizens of Tennessee. In the end, most of all, we are failing the victims. So I hope that answered your question.
Hey, Tina, this is Sue.
Hey, Sue.
Do you think it would ever come to the point that it would be not mandated, but a requirement that each county, or like if we've got a district that has 4 or 5 counties, and we do have those, that at least one of those counties have a program? Because we have so many counties that don't even have the program, and it's so needed, because I hear from these coordinators all the time, we've got this situation and we've got no place to send this defendant or her. It's 90% of the time, like she said, like Sarah said, it is a man, but we have women that commit domestic violence too. So I don't know if it would ever come to the point that it would be a standard that we have, within reach of these districts, that somebody has a program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good question, and it's also a good thought. Again, that's the reason we need to spend some time looking at those standards, because even the LGBT community, they are not included in our standards, and we have got to be deliberate about including them as well. So,
We do, we absolutely do.
so Melanie has a question or thought, and then Sarah will come back to you.
Okay.
And Tina, I just wanted to follow up on a comment you made. You said that Kansas has a model that we might be able to look at to utilize as a measure when we put some thought and revamp into some of these standards. Is that some information that can be circulated?
Yes, it can, and I can send it out to the council. Yeah, and thank
Thank
you.
you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky, for bringing that to our attention, because we do want to, Brooke and I talked last week, and we do want to be very deliberate about our services to all citizens. And so just starting with those standards, I think could prove to be both valuable and worthwhile. So we definitely want to do the work. It's hard work, but we want to do the work because we know that victim safety is at the core. Sarah.
Tina,
I'm sorry. Yeah, let me.
Okay, go ahead,
Sarah's
Becky,
hand was
that-
first, Becky.
Becky might have something to say about what I am about to ask. So go ahead, Becky.
we'll see, Sarah. But I just wanted to say that with the standards revision, I think that's great. We are one of the things that we've been looking at through our office for some time are the standards and how those have applied. For example, in our fatality review, we did a review several years ago and brought our findings to this body. It was probably back in 2018, and had some recommendations for the standards to change. So Tina, I'll send you along those. They are several years old, but they may still be applicable.
Sure.
And then I just wanted to add with the Kansas initiative, this is something we've been hearing about for several years, that it's just an innovative program. It focuses really heavily on behavioral change, which I know, again, this body, we've discussed that many times, being able to kind of show that there's significant behavioral change from these programs versus that, we're kind of checking the box on, okay, we talked about this and this, but that there are some significant outcomes from the programs, as Tina said, so that we can benefit the victims and also benefit the abusers, the people who are using abuse. And Diane and I were presenting at a conference in Georgia and happened to see this model. And I think it's something that's really applicable as we're talking about, genders in these perpetrator classes. It's applicable to all. It takes a really kind of holistic model and certainly talks about gender-based issues and how, we can see that feeding into abuse cycles and normalization of abuse. But it seemed to be a great model. So I'm excited that we'll be looking into that. Thank you, Tina, for taking that on.
Sure. Thank you for the referral, because we're open to do better, because again, victim safety is at the core. All right, so Sarah, was that what you wanted to say verbatim?
Well, I was just curious,
Sarah?
because it's like, I think what we need to do first is to create a list of ways in which we want to update our standards, because there's a lot of, there's more than one piece here. There's, I don't know what this fatality study is going to address, but I bet it has to do with like notification and things like that with victims potentially. So, that's a piece that could be on the list of things that we want to look at. And Becky, I don't want to speak for you because I don't know what was on the list you guys created, but like that, for example, I'm assuming it's something like that, but like that would be something we could address. Then, kind of the gender issue and addressing multiple different communities and giving them kind of representation in the standards. That would be another issue. And so then I think we should make a list of what we want to be, how we want to be changing the standards. And then we can, I think Melanie was wondering if we could have this disseminated, because I'm curious, so this Kansas model is, what is it really, is it addressing what we're requiring of BIPs? Is it a new BIP model? I don't know. And then on top of that, who, is there somebody, depending on what this Kansas model offers us, is there somebody maybe within the coalition that could do a little research on this and see like a kind of a countrywide research to see if there's other states that are starting to address these inclusion issues that we're talking about? And, you know, maybe we could kind of look at all of these things together. So that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, and those are really good thoughts, Sarah. I will tell you that I serve on the National BIPS Committee. And yes, these are some of the challenges nationwide by not having specific classes for specific communities. So Becky, just at your convenience, if you can send me whatever you had in 2018, we'll look at those and kind of figure out if they are still applicable. And Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, I would like for us to, at this time, ask if there is anyone interested in being on the Standards Committee. And it sounds that Sarah could be a really good chair of that committee. Sarah Davis.
Chair.
At least be a member.
You just volunteered
Yeah.
me, Tina. I saw you do that.
You know, I just slipped it in, Sarah. You know how I do.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Anyone else would like to work with Sarah? And I'll be working with that committee as well. And I think Brooke has some interest. Is that correct, Brooke?
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
Anybody else? Just let us know so that we can again start looking at this. And Becky, you're about to say something?
Tina, I'd love to have Ashley from our office be a part of that
Yes,
committee as a
Ashley
guest.
Kathy, that is. Yes.
That would be great.
Okay, very good. All right, any other thoughts?
And you can put me on that committee too, if you don't mind.
All right, Chief, I love it. Thank you, Chief. We will, okay?
You're welcome.
All right, so the other corrective actions, number one, the class ended. The class was from 5 until 6:30, or that's the time that it was to be. The classes are to go in or last at least 90 minutes, up to 2.5 hours. This particular class only went from 5 until 6:08. Now, this is the reason, or a reason, we monitor classes. We don't go looking for things. When you monitor classes, you will find things. And for Mr. Ford to know that I was monitoring and to end the class early concerned me. Now, this is what he said verbatim, that he was tired and had been up since 2:30 a.m. at Nissan Stadium, blah, 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 as I was taking my notes. And so he says this in front of the participants. And so then he dismisses the class at 6:08. So that's a concern. Now, this was not a part of the original concern when I went out last cycle. Again, this is a reason why monitoring these classes are so important, because you will find findings in these classes. And so we are hoping that he can go through the class for the entire 90 minutes, because if not, the class is not being effective. So that's a concern. Any thoughts about that? All right. And then the third finding was it was only him, an additional facilitator. Our standards require at least 2 facilitators at each class. Now, the second facilitator could be an intern or a volunteer. However, the lead facilitator should have the trainings that we provide. And so this is the second time that I have monitored within the last 6 months that he has only had 1 facilitator. Now, some of the concerns he has had in terms of one is that he can't afford it. So when you look at a class with 2 participants, there is a concern that maybe he can't afford it. But again, we stress that that second person could be a volunteer and or an intern. So there is some work that he needs to do so that we can help him with these deficiencies. Questions or thoughts?
Did you say there was only 2 people in that class?
Yes, he has 2 classes, Chief. He has a program in Rutherford County. That program is the most successful class of the 2 classes he has. It has more participants. He is trying to get established in or reestablished in Davidson County. And in the Davidson County class is where we had the 2 participants.
Okay, I just didn't know if it could be, it might help benefit him if he had more people in that class, and I don't know how frequently he has that class. So that was just my thoughts.
I think what they try to do is they try to give a lot of different choices for offenders with times and dates to try to give people better opportunity to complete the classes. And so probably, I'm just guessing, probably what's happening is he's just giving so many options, but then there's just some classes that have low attendance. That's my guess.
Yeah, that's a good hypothesis. In Davidson County, there are several programs, and the sheriff's office is the program with the most participants. And so they have over 200 to 300 participants on a regular. And I talked to the judges, and these are the domestic violence judges. I met with Judge Floyd, Judge Walker, and Judge Escobar in terms of how they rotate those court referrals. And mainly, Judge Walker specifically told me that because there is no fee in the sheriff's office, that is the reason, or a reason, that they get a lot of referrals, because they ask the offenders if they're able to financially support those classes. And if they are not able to financially support, they will refer them to the sheriff's office for BIPs. All right, so since I'm at the end of the report from certification and monitoring, I would like to ask the council what direction or what steps should we take with this particular program? Any suggestions? Because we're definitely open to it.
I don't know if you can send me more information about the program, but if you can, then I could make better educated comments.
Okay. You just need to be informed, Chief, right?
What are our options? Lay them out for us, Tina.
Well, the option number one is we could ask for an extension, right? And just kind of work with him on getting the program where it needs to be, just as it is in Rutherford County, right? Or we can decertify. That could be an option as well. I don't like to decertify programs unless it's just an absolute necessity. But what I don't want is for the program to re-victimize victims or create new victims because the program is not doing what it needs to do. So those are your 2 options. Or we can even suspend. And if we do that, we have to notify the courts that program should not be receiving any new referrals. And if you remember, Sarah, I think you were here when we had to do that with Crossroads for a while, until they were able to get back on standards.
Tina, this is Sue. I think one of the issues with me would be that he has a female in with a male and doing that program that is geared toward males.
Sure.
I just don't think that's a good, policy at all.
No, it's not. It's not a good mix. It's not.
But is that against standards?
It is not necessarily against standards. Again, this is why we need to look at those standards. So yes.
I mean, we certainly can't decertify him for something that's not in the standards. I don't think.
Right.
To me, the ending the class early, that drives me crazy. I think that's really inappropriate, and he knows better. I mean, we all have times where we're tired and whatever, but a whole hour, that's beyond the pale.
Actually, it was 28 minutes early.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't like that, but I don't know that I agree with you. Decertification is that's extreme to me. My recommendation, if I were to make a motion, would be that we choose the first option and suggest corrective action.
Okay.
Anybody want to second that motion?
And so what corrective actions would you?
Well,
like
the
to-
the first issue was the timing,
Mhm.
that there be no classes that are not the full time, unless he wants to make up that time on another session. As far as, I would say, I don't know what people think about this, but perhaps we could say that you not cross gender boundaries until the certifications have been, the standards have been revamped.
Mhm.
And then what was the last thing that you noticed that he was doing? I can't remember.
Yeah, so it was, an additional facilitator.
That's a hard one. I don't know what to say about that, because I mean, I can understand where it could be a serious financial hardship for him if he's only got 2 people in the class to pay 2 people to do the group for 2 people. I don't know what the answer there is. So
And that's why that's why the
people.
standards state volunteer or an intern because of that. Now, the overall issue for me is safety. If he's the only one there, something happens, I would be concerned that he's there by himself. And we saw that with the Crossroads situation where there were 2 facilitators. And of course, you all remember that we had someone to literally die, a facilitator to die, to be murdered actually at the end of one of those classes. So I think that's the reason that those standards state the way they are in terms of at least 2 facilitators. And preferably a male and a female. That would be my preference. But hey, I'm just a little old secretary taking minutes, so.
Tina, do we know if he has an issue with finding a second person, like just having a volunteer or an intern? Or did he have that issue with that particular class on that day?
Yeah, so a couple of months ago when I monitored, he said that he was in the process of hiring someone and that he knew he needed to have 2 facilitators.
Okay.
Since there's a lot of, excuse me, this is Brooke Huppenthal. Since we're kind of working through the details on this, I think this might be a conversation probably best suited, maybe beginning with the rules committee and kind of going from there so we can have a better understanding of the situation. So I would recommend that we might continue and to get a better picture of it, and perhaps anyone interested in this research and looking into these issues can join the new rules committee starting in 2024.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes the certification and monitoring report.
Thank you, Tina. Appreciate it very much. And
Cool.
next, we did have the Emerging Issues and Orders of Protection Committee that met this morning in a separate Zoom meeting. And we will hear now from its chair, Michelle Consiglio Young. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. So yes, we did meet this morning at 9. Brooke attended, as well as Sue Jones and Becky Bullard and myself. And we were catching up. I apologize to them and I'll apologize to you all. I inadvertently didn't mean to not give notice for missing the September meeting, but I had a 3rd child in end of August, and the way it landed, I just did not have enough time to get out to everyone that I was not available. So anyway, I'm back. I'm actually back officially on Tuesday, but I wanted to make sure I got to this meeting, and the baby is napping, so we're all good for right now. So that is always nice. But we did have a few issues that we discussed. The first was in reference to a public comment that we received from actually Ms. Van Wolf, who's on here as a guest, regarding the affidavit of firearm dispossession and whether or not that should be referenced or somehow acknowledged on the order protection forms. So we had discussed that. generally, and we had decided that because the U.S. Supreme Court is taking up a case entitled United States versus Rahimi, that we should have an opinion, from them later in the summer 2024. Typically, it would be June 2024 at some point. That we're going to defer that issue for right now till we get that opinion and a little bit more clarity on the issue, because it's all intertwined. So, and also that does get us through our own state legislative session, which does, sometimes make changes to the forms, and we do take those up in June, the June meeting as well, for changes in July. So we're going to just defer that for right now, and we'll come back to that issue once we get a little bit more clarification, or whatever the opinion may say in Rahimi, because discussion of that right now, we would have to rediscuss it anyway. So that's what we're going to do on that issue. But Van, thanks for sending that. We definitely appreciate it. And we had actually talked that it's probably something that people have seen as an issue across the state. So we'll be sure to just keep looking at that and wait for the opinion and just see how that all interplays.
That makes sense.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you're good with. I saw you were on here, so we'll get she's on here, so she'll know what we're doing. So, but I appreciate it, and I appreciate you sending that. And then the second issue that we discussed came to us from the clerk and master in Hamilton County Chancery Court. And they had a request for us to look at including the status of any possible divorce proceedings to be noted on order protection forms. We initially thought that this is a little bit outside our purview as far as having that directly on the forms, just because of various conflict issues, the fact that that is not specifically stated or referenced in our code. There are just several things that we would need to take into consideration with that, and just from hearing from the judges, I haven't heard from other judges that is an issue in other counties. I'm going to talk to Hamilton County, just to the clerk and master there, and get a little bit more context and clarification about that, and look into it a little bit. But we also decided not to take any action on that right now, just because that is something that we wanted to look into a little bit more, and we weren't quite thinking that that's something we could act on anyway right now. So we're going to look at that a little bit, but that was the other issue that came up in our meeting, and so I have nothing for everyone to vote on right now, and we'll kind of get back to everyone later in 2024 on some of these issues.
Michelle, may I say something along the lines of what you just spoke about?
Yeah, that's fine. That's great.
I find in our judicial district that even the 4 circuit judges are confused as to whether or not they're supposed to consolidate a full order of protection or an ex parte order of protection. And so again, they stay sort of confused about that. And honestly, that statute's not real clear. It just says an order. And I'm sure you're aware of that. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that has come up. It actually has come up in some of our judicial conferences as far as questions, because we do have training on the order protection process annually, if not, more than that, with the various different judicial conferences. But yes, I think that's also an education issue, but like you said, it's a statutory issue as well. There's some things that could be clarified in the statute, but thanks for bringing that up. That actually came up earlier this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Does anyone have any other questions for the committee? Okay, and so with that, we'll get to our final committee, the Training and Education Report. Alana Tate, the chair, like Secretary Fox mentioned, is not here today. So Secretary Fox will take her place and discuss the report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did push out the training and education report. The final report was pushed out on yesterday, Just want to make a note that we trained approximately 716 participants during this past cycle. And so we're very excited about that. Judge Blackshear Dalton, who is one of our committee members, we had a panel during the judicial conference, and it went extremely well. Thank you, Darisha, for the referral. We had a survivor who did a phenomenal job and really gave the judges that opportunity to understand what victims go through and how the system sometimes fail domestic violence victims, and for the most part, a lot of victims. But it was well attended by the judges. They were, in my estimation, appreciative. A lot of them came up to us after the panel discussion ended. The panel did include Sandy from the YWCA, Diane Lance from the Office of Family Safety, myself, and Monica, who was the survivor. So it went extremely well. During the month of October, as we know, was Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I personally trained about 600 persons during that month. And one of the things that I've recognized is that we do get a lot of requests. We are inundated with requests for domestic violence presentations during the month of October. However, we have to know and understand as a council that every day is a domestic violence day for survivors and victims who are going through. So we need to talk about domestic violence and bring awareness on a day-to-day basis and not just in the month of October. Madam Chair, that concludes my report from the Training and Education Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Fox. And does anyone have any questions for this committee? Okay. Just as a reminder, this is our final meeting for 2023. Our upcoming 2024 dates include March 1st, June 14th, September 13th, and December 6th. We will send that out later on when we send out the minutes for this meeting. And finally, we have announcements by Secretary Fox.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. There are only two announcements, and one was already made by our chair, is that those minutes from committee members, from committee meetings, you have me saying members now, Madam Chair, committee meetings, if we can get those in by December 15th, we know that this is a holiday month. And so every quarter I have to submit a report to the Office of Criminal Justice Programs. And so whenever I have to wait on those minutes, it literally delays the report. So we can get those in at least 2 weeks after the actual meeting. It will prove to be so worthwhile, especially for me. So thank you all very much. And then finally, I just want to make sure that we have the names, Madam Chair, of those who have committed to being on the Standards Committee. I know Sarah and I think Chief Vess, myself and you.
I'm also interested, Tina.
Okay, Darisha, okay, very good. So at least 5, that'll be great. So we'll look at a time to commence looking at those standards in January, sometime in January.
So are you going to start that, or do you want me to do it? Because
We want you to do it, Sarah.
Okay.
Please. Please. And then finally, Senator Wally, when is a good time for us to call your office to get an appointment? We would like an appointment before December ends, if we can.
Sure. You can call Jerry in my office anytime. And I'm going to be in and out of there during December. The legislative session starts January 9.
Right.
So, yeah, please just call her directly, and she and I speak several times a day.
Okay.
And we'll make sure we get that coordinated and set up.
Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you. It won't take about 30, 45 minutes, and we can do it virtually. Is that correct?
We can do it virtually, and we're glad to do it in person.
Okay. Very good. Okay. All right. Those are the announcements, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Fox. And finally, last section, public comments. We did discuss one earlier. Michelle Consiglio-Young did earlier with Van Wolf. But as a reminder, public comments must be submitted to Secretary Fox at least 2 weeks before the general body meeting. And with that, Secretary Fox, can you confirm that we have not received any further public comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we did receive an additional one. However, we need some more information. And we're waiting to hear back from that person who submitted their request. So hopefully we'll have an answer in the March meeting, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. And at this time, are there any further questions or comments by any council members? Okay, and with that, thank you again for your time this morning and all the important work that we do for Tennesseans. And this meeting is officially adjourned at 10:54 a.m. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season.